Don't you love it when the elevator reaches the top floor? So anyway, here we are at a Christian business podcast, and I don't know how long Forrest has been recording, so I have an old podcast buddy, Jared Hanna with H Electric, on the podcast today with us, and we had a podcast together with another friend, Undignified Christianity. I think it's still out there on the lines.
I think so. Joe's holding out that we're going to come back.
Well, we'll just have to let Joe sit where he is and say we podcasted without him. So Jared is obviously an electrician, H Electric, and so we're going to kind of pick his brain a little bit and see what's going on in his life. Jared, did you prepare a devotion, or did we not tell you about that?
You did, and I was thinking about it.
And you didn't.
I did.
Oh, okay.
But it's not really here. Let me turn my ringer off while I'm at it. People are texting me. I did prepare one, but it's not like a devotional.
You just give us some spiritual words, Jared.
Jesus.
Of the Jesus kind.
No, my one of the things I've been kind of working on lately is looking like behind the actions that I'm doing. So you have like the fruits of the Spirit. You have the what's the ones before it? The fruits of the flesh, give or take, right? In Ephesians, it talks about, the fruits of the Spirit, the fruits of the flesh. And I heard somebody was talking about, and they're, different things, talking about how all things come from those. So if you take your action, take a step back from your action and look to see which one of those it comes from. And you can have the same action that could come from something good or something bad, which can be kind of an inert action, but it's actually affecting you spiritually. So, for example, say you're working with an apprentice and they're on a ladder and you hand them a tool. Like, what is that coming from? Is it coming from a place where you're like, I need to get this done. This piece of crap isn't working fast enough and I'm just going to give it to them. Or is it coming from a place of, I see you, I see what you're doing.
Let me help you out.
Let me help you out. Like, what is the thing behind the thing?
The action's the same.
Right.
And from somebody else looking at it, they wouldn't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's body language and people pick up on why people are doing things for you. But then we were talking in our small group a little bit about love and chaos. And it's just one of those things we don't, because my question's always like, okay, what are we talking about? Because it's like, well, it's love and chaos and the culture and all these things. And it's like, okay, well, what are we talking about? What is love? What is chaos? And where do they come from?
What is love?
Baby, don't hurt me. Yeah, I started singing that actually when the guy was talking about it.
Yeah. Nice. Forrest, stop shaking your head. You know that you wish that Jared and I would start a thing singing together.
No.
Jared's like
that was too much, right?
You thought about it for like 0.038 seconds or something? Okay. I got you. Anyway, moving on.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. So most of my, spiritual stuff lately has been teaching Sunday school and stuff. Like, that's been the point of most of the things we're going through Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And just getting away from this binary look at it and like, what's the things behind the things?
Binary.
Well,
I don't even think I want to go there with you right now. Jared has about 117 shades of gray, and I have like 3.
Yes.
But it makes for interesting conversation, which is why I'm excited to have him on the podcast.
But all of those things help me calm down when I look at the things behind the things, because then it's not an assault on my manhood or personality or whatever. And
I think it's good to do heart checks, no matter where we are.
Right. That would be the Christianese way to put it. Yeah. Doing a heart check. Yeah.
How is that Christianese?
Have you heard it? Have you heard it outside of a Christian?
I have.
From who?
I have.
Who?
People who claim to be spiritual.
So Christian ripoffs.
Okay. But not still, Christian.
Yeah, but it's Christianese. It's something you're saying to convey a point that you don't even know what it means.
Are we going here right now? Are we going to do this right now?
See, I'm getting all worked up.
If you want to hear more of this, listen to Undignified Christianity. Wherever you listen.
I told myself when I came in here, I'm like, I'm not going to argue with Aaron.
We're not going to do this.
I'm not going to argue with Aaron.
Come on. Anyway, so there's Jared's devotion, and we appreciate that.
No, you don't. Don't lie to me.
So one of the things Forrest and I talked about recently, we had our 2 last guests. one of the reasons it's helpful to have Justin here is because he knows people I don't, and I know people he doesn't. Why I say that is sometimes it's hard to bring out conversations with people who you've known for a while. Jared and I went to school together 20 years
More
ago.
than 2 decades ago.
More
yes.
than 2 decades ago. And we've known each other relatively
more than 2
decently
decades.
Ever since.
More than 2 decades.
Oh, yeah. I think your aunt was my 5th grade teacher. So,
sure.
I mean, yeah.
I believe you.
Well, we're in the same area.
Yeah.
Anyway, so as we talk, I'm apologizing for things that I glaze over because I know them, but you don't. So you'll have to forgive me in that. But hey, you could have Jared over to do some electrical work for you and find out more.
I can do all the things.
You can do all the things. Sparky. So Jared, typically format, kind of tell your story. Like before, I always tell people, before Jesus, after Jesus, if you have some kind of insight on that from where you're sitting.
How can I say this? It's not making Aaron mad.
I promise you won't make me mad. I have come your direction a little bit in my philosophy. Well,
I mean, I got saved like 5 times through
Right.
high school because that's what good evangelical children do. They get scared and they want that fire insurance, so then they get saved, and then they get scared again, and they get saved again, and then they get scared again, and then so that happened.
It's like a circle.
It's like a circle. It's like a vicious circle. See, what happens is people want to count you as a number, so they scare you enough to get you saved again, so that way they can, or you can rededicate, keep those numbers up.
Rededicate, that's right. Which is not quite as good as salvation.
Yeah, but it's
well, there's another score on the
It's in the
board.
same ballpark,
There's
something else you can write down.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like
Send up to the district and
points
say,
and
look,
assists.
we have value, see? No, so that happened. And then I've never been and I never walked away or anything like that. I was angry for a long time as a child, and somewhere whilst I was in
Sorry.
No, it's
Shots fired.
It's true. I was more angry.
I'll
Is that better?
accept that. I'll take that.
But somewhere after my first deployment, I simmered down a little bit, and it was more like I called a truce with God, kind of one of those you just kind of wake up and you're like, you know what?
Okay, fine.
So then it was more like a slow drift. So I wouldn't say that there was there were lots of points of time where I came to Jesus. But
right.
as far as actually wanting to live a life that Jesus would appreciate, I think it was more of a slow drift.
I like the way you worded that. Live the type of life Jesus would appreciate. I think I'm gonna use that.
That's fine.
So, all these times that you have this big emotional experience and get saved again, as you say, do you see places where, okay, yeah, the final assessment and the logistics of it, okay, yeah, that's annoying. But in those moments, do you see some spiritual growth happening there?
Yeah,
some
and for some people, it's going to be a seminal moment, and they just never turn back, and that's fine. That's just not how I experienced it. And there was some coercion there, which I don't think was healthy, but some people work through that a lot easier than other people. And some people, they need that starting point. They need that, this is the moment, and I'm going to go on from here. I'm just not, it's not my bent.
Because the home you were raised in, you had parents who loved Jesus.
Yeah.
And, you were part of a church that, for all its faults and foibles, was a family of faith.
Yeah.
And supported in some way, shape, or form your spiritual growth. With whatever, we all have that situation. No church is perfect, obviously, and so we all have baggage that come from our upbringing in terms of church. But foundationally, you had a decent start in the faith.
Yeah, and I had a basic of understanding, so I wasn't learning everything from scratch.
Right.
There were things that I reinterpreted and looked back and I don't think that's, the way they were explaining that was, I don't think that's how
it's supposed to go.
You keep using these words. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Right. And so, okay, so you're going through high school, because I remember, being a part of youth group events and stuff with you, and, there was kind of a level of understanding amongst us. It was a really formative time in my faith in terms of, I would say, for me, zeal for God in that kind of arena. It's and it was a blessing that, it was kind of like all my friends are doing it, but looking back, that may have been how I saw it at that time, but it helped.
Mhm.
Like things I think about and where I am right now and how I relate to people spiritually, that heavily influenced it. And so there is some spiritual growth happening, and you graduate high school and sign your life away,
Mm-hmm.
and the U.S. government decides to cash your blank check,
Mm-hmm.
and that was an experience.
It was.
Speak as deeply as you wish about that experience, and I will.
I mean,
not,
how long are we going to be here?
And I will not, as I said, as deeply as you wish. This is going out on the lines.
On the lines?
It is going out on the lines.
Don't admit to
So
any kind of war crimes? Is that what you're saying? Is that
Oh,
what you're
dear.
going for?
So go as
You're
deep
trying to-
as you want, and
Are
I
you-
will not pry for more.
You're with the government, aren't you? You're coming for the war crimes.
Oh, yes, exactly.
You want to know where all the bodies are buried?
That's right.
Well, I don't remember. I didn't keep the grid coordinates. No. I mean, it was...
All right. Okay, so we're going there. Okay.
No, it was... There was a lot of good things about it, and there were a lot of bad things about it, and the bad did not outweigh the good, so I left. I tried to play the game, but, you learn that the government will always win. It doesn't really matter, and if they're losing, then they change the rules, and you lose still. But there's a saying, I think I heard it from Rogan, but it's kind of a life-ism, that the hardest thing you've ever done is the hardest thing you've ever done. And it's just stating the fact that your capacity to go through things changes as you go through things.
Mm.
And it changed my capacity to go through things, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. So there are things that do not affect me now that seem to just level other people.
Mhm.
And there are other things that I'm more sensitive toward that
Kind of like that
other people don't understand.
Right. That experience made me like, no, I'm not doing this again. I'm not doing this again. Whereas some people might have been that like, okay, I've done this before. I got it.
Well, yeah.
You can have either reaction.
It's like one of those, like when your kids do this as they grow older, right? You're trying to find that right level of adversity to enter into their life. But the hardest thing they've ever done is the hardest thing they've ever done. If the hardest thing they've ever done is put their socks on, that's the hardest thing they've ever done. And it's a big emotional deal.
I always think
until,
about it.
they learn how to put their shoes on, and then they learn how to tie their shoes, and then they learn how to, so you're just introducing that adversity. It's just when you get to be an adult, some of those things either break you or make you stronger.
Well, I always look at that, from a pain standpoint. Like, you look at women and men, and, my wife, I mean, I have children. That means my wife has had a baby, and that level of pain I know nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
So when I am in the most excruciating pain I've ever been in, it's probably not as bad as she was in pain. But we can't look at our pain in that way. That's the worst pain she's ever been in,
Mm-hmm.
and mine is the worst pain I've ever been in. And that in itself makes the pain the same. Because in a sense,
in a way,
that I have no point of reference to think of more pain.
Right.
Though she may. But, and just a side note on the sound here, we are building an office, and we finally got insulation in. And so we're actually podcasting from inside the office. No drywall on the walls. All the rough-in electric, courtesy of
H Electric.
H Electric. Yeah,
231-928-8100. Give us a call.
We'll put all that contact info in the description. So if you're wondering who this awesome electrician is that you're listening to, we'll put all his contact info in the description. You can reach out to him.
Anyone who's listening has probably already gotten a call from me.
That's so. Now, where was I? Oh, anyway, so we're in there. Sound. You can probably
hear the trucks going past.
You probably hear trucks going past. So that's what's going on, and it's kind of refreshing for me to hear because it's been a process. But it seems to be getting louder, so I don't know. We'll get it taken care of.
It's all in your head.
It's all in your head.
Don't worry about it.
So anyway, talk to me about, if you desire, talk to me about how your time overseas, because you were 2 years?
Twice, total of 2 years, yes.
Twice, total of 2 years. Talk to me how that shaped you spiritually, and what if you care to. If you don't care to, then just give me some general something and we'll move on.
No, that's a very broad question. I don't mind going there, but I don't know what you want out
Well,
of that
what
question.
do you see? Like, okay, when I had this understanding of faith, I had this understanding of who God was and who I was, and I had this way of operating before I went, and now that I'm back,
It was
I
more
see
of
this
a
difference and hear what caused it.
changing. It was more of a changing what reality is. On my first deployment, my truck got hit and the driver got medevaced. So we thought he was fine. So, there's this like, I'm not going to use all the vulgar terms because we're trying to keep this PG, but everybody's like, oh yeah, good job. You didn't die, amongst, a bunch of different sayings that people will say. But we got back to the fob and everybody's all happy and laughing. And then you find out the guy died. So there's this like change in reality, because if the way that our truck was hit, if he'd have driven another 3 feet before it went off, it would have been my legs instead of his legs.
I see. So
there's like a changing of reality. And I mean, spiritually, I think that I went from like an 18-year-old angry child to dealing with a different reality. So it doesn't really fix anything. It just changes the paradigm. So then everything that you've ever done starts to get shifted through a different lens.
So like instant maturity change. Instant paradigm. Yeah.
It's a paradigm shift. I mean, because some of the things, it's going to be that the hardest thing you've ever done is the hardest thing you've ever done.
Right.
Now the hardest thing I've ever done has shifted. So everything that I've been through before takes on a different hue. And that, I mean, you can call that trauma, you can call that whatever you want, which is true, but it does shift your paradigm, good, bad, or indifferent. But most of the time, it's my experience. In some ways, it shifts it in a good way. In other ways, it shifts it in a bad way. But
right. Your response to emergency, your response to stress, all of that now is.
And there's another example, because every once in a while something will happen, and I don't emotionally process the same way other people, but I can look at how other people are processing it. And I'm like, I don't process it that way. Case in point, we're at Joe's house, right? And you were there for this. And we were all sitting by his back door, and the kids were down by the creek. And Seth, who is my youngest, who doesn't have full use of his legs, was down by the creek. And my wife said, you need to go get him because he's getting too close. And I was like, okay. So I get up, I get halfway there, and he I can't say that term. Bottom over tea kettle.
Bottom over tea kettle. Okay.
into the creek, and I see him disappear over the ledge. I don't run. Like, I just continue walking. And I get there, and his entire head is underwater, and he's like looking up at me going, and I'm just like, okay. And I just reach down and grab a leg and I pull him out. And I don't then you can console him, make sure he's breathing and stuff. But there's a difference in how people process. And I don't emotionally process things differently, but I can look at how my wife would have reacted or how anyone else would have reacted. I'm going, there's something different about how I'm processing this situation.
Right.
And it's not that I think it's good or bad. It's just different.
It's different. Different.
I know that paradigm shift and how I reacted in that situation comes from some of that.
Okay. So not like huge spiritual connection with God stuff?
Huge.
Okay, so we can move on if you want.
I don't care. I'm a lot better about it now.
Is there a so tell me where the spiritual connotation comes in. In terms of relating to God.
I mean, in what way doesn't it? I mean, that
is that what you're saying? Is your response to situations now? There is a spiritual situation there. Like was there like a okayness that God's got it kind of thing? Is what you're saying? Like when you're somewhere in the creek or whatever.
It's more of a futility. Like there's a
got it
in a positive way. It can help you be like, listen, this is temporal. Like, we're all going to die. It's okay. From dust we have come, and to dust we will return.
Got you.
So there's like an acceptance of that, but at the same time, you're struggling with that. I mean, what is that? The big word for it. The theodicy. If God is good, why does he allow bad things to happen to?
Right.
So then there's a different how you relate to that question, which is pretty seminal in how you relate to God, changes, because it's not it's not the same anymore. It's not.
Well, it's a totally different paradigm. Like,
God lets
wait a
my
minute.
parents get divorced. That's bad, which is bad.
Mm-hmm.
God lets, me get a speeding ticket. Okay.
Right.
God lets me, okay.
God lets me get stung by a bee.
This guy who was, 48 hours from going home to his 2 kids isn't going home to his 2 kids.
So your bee sting is just not like I'm not there.
Right. And it's
right.
And it's not that those other things are bee stings. It's back to that.
The worst thing you've ever done.
The worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
Exactly. So as long as do you think you struggle with that? The worst thing you've ever done is the worst thing you've ever done, and do you struggle having compassion for people?
Oh yeah, I don't feel it at all. Like,
let's just be real here. Let's just be real.
Fine. Like, I see someone even in physical pain. I'm like, oh, that person is in pain. I can tell by their face. Like,
but anyway,
and then it's like, okay, are you gonna get over it, or are you gonna like, what's going on here?
Right.
But I don't feel it at all.
No, I got you.
Which I don't think I was that touchy-feely before.
And so how long ago did you come back, and how, obviously you have to kind of quotes recover from that, if you will, can function with your ADLs, right? Your activities of daily living, and can get back to a functioning space in general society.
Well, define functioning.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Activities of daily living. Get up in the morning, go to work.
I never stopped. I internalized a lot of it. So, a lot of people just didn't.
You just walked right in. You just walked right back in.
Well,
life.
I just internalized it. I knew enough that self-destructing it wasn't profitable.
Right. Okay.
So I could just hold it all in and just let it chew up everything.
Got you. And that was, probably what, 18 years ago, 16 years ago? Something like
2006. So
16 years
16,
ago.
18.
So then you've just been continually on that kind of a steady progression through your faith and ups and downs, just like anybody else.
Just like a normal person that doesn't have the PTSD.
Right. Any other...
Everybody has trauma, Aaron.
Right?
Everybody has PTSD.
Everybody has trauma. From bee stings to explosions.
Yeah.
Everybody's got trauma. So do you see other points where you can look back and be like, that was a really... That situation or that time period I went through some really, big changes spiritually.
I'd say it was more just slow.
Just a slow...
Like, there were things that happened that gave me room to just process for long periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
And there were enough people that, when the crazy came out, they at least were scared enough they didn't mention it, I guess. But I don't know. I'd say it's a slow climb at that point. Like, it wasn't.
Got you. There was no,
No, there's things that have been, like, when you have kids, obviously things change. And when you see the things that you're doing that you don't like about yourself happening in your children,
it's like,
well, it causes you to reevaluate the things that you're doing.
Right.
But it's never been like a milestone. It's just been that slow, steady.
Sure. Yeah, normal. And a lot of times, we'll hear on the podcast here of people, hey, this thing happened and it really opened my eyes to such and such. And a lot of people can gain from that and get new perspectives. And so I always try and ask if there are, specific points. Obviously, your deployment was a big shift and a paradigm shift. And I think there's people that could be blessed by that. But so now we kind of have an idea of where Jared's been when you got out of the military 10, 12 years or 16 years ago. At what point did you get into electrical?
It was like 6 months later. I went to a semester of college because that's what you're supposed to do. And I hated it.
That worked really well with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sitting in classes, listening to professors all day.
I knew I wanted to do something with electrical. I told myself I want to go into construction because that seemed like something. I didn't want to be a cop or security guard, which is pretty much all 11 Bravos can get out and do.
Right.
So I picked construction worker, and I kind of settled on electrician because it seemed like they didn't work as hard as carpenters.
Okay.
Which
shots fired.
Well,
shots fired.
When I pictured a carpenter, because I didn't have a lot of experience, I pictured a framer, which I could do, but I was at that point already evaluating, like, I'm not going to be able to do this physically 20 years from now.
Right.
So I was making that calculation in my mind of
Especially after Uncle Sam did what
Right,
Uncle Sam
right.
did to
After
your
I
body.
shrunk an inch and a half and some other things. But yeah, so that was kind of my calculation. So then I went to a semester of electrical technologies and hated it. So then I just got an apprenticeship and went through trade school and worked for the same company for 11 years.
11 years.
And then just recently started my own company.
And that was everything from, pulling wire through a crawl space to wiring high rises in downtown Grand Rapids kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was mostly high-end residential.
High-end residential. Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of their primary focus, but anything in a house. I did some offices, some of that basic stuff, but
Side
mostly
gig here and
residential.
there.
Yeah.
Right. So, and through that process, you gained your master certification.
Journeyman, masters, electrical
right.
contractor, the whole gambit.
Mm-hmm. And obviously that was profitable for you in terms of, not being thousands and thousands of dollars in debt.
Yeah,
from education.
and because my company paid for it.
What are master electricians who work for another company? What are they making right now? 65, 70, 80,000?
Union or non-union?
Non-union.
I don't know. I mean, it's probably a range. It depends on their
a range,
duties.
yeah. Just curious.
25 to 40, probably.
An hour.
Yeah.
So anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000 a year.
Yeah, give or take.
Working for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a bad gig because the education costs you a weight they pay you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you got kids and stuff, that's
the way to go.
Good field. Okay, so you're working for that company for several years. You're driving all over creation.
Yep.
Because high-end residential. That's
New Buffalo to Traverse City.
There you go. And being a dad and someone who's caring for people, spiritually ministering, providing insight and wisdom as Sunday school teaching and average Joe churchgoer and supporting the family of faith. That does not work really well to be driving all over creation.
Yeah, I mean, it worked. It wasn't totally bad. It's just one of those priorities thing. Like there's good things and bad things about it. And the company I left, like I got nothing bad to say about them at all. Right. Like they were good people and they treated me really well.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was just one of those.
A shift in what God had laid on your heart was most important?
It's just one of those things that bothers you. Like, I bet you I could do that.
Okay.
And it was one of those calculations of.
Was that just you saying that or was that someone else saying that?
I mean, a lot of people have. I mean, whenever you're in the trades, people, that's kind of the standard.
You could do that on your own.
Yeah. You do that on your own, which, whatever. But it was just one of those, I think maybe I could.
Mm-hmm.
And just from my age to my experience to all that stuff, it was like, well, this is the time if you're going to try it.
Better get into it.
I mean, the economy is going decently. There aren't enough contractors because people are getting out of it and nobody's getting into it.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of people that work in the trades, but not a lot of people really want to start their own company.
Right.
Because it is a big pain in the fourth point of contact.
Yes.
You see how I did that
there?
That
was nice. That was nice. Smooth.
Yeah, smooth.
So
kept it PG.
So you kind of struck out on your own. And we often talk about at the end of the podcast, hey, give a guy who's, thinking about, going into business for himself and he's been walking with Jesus for a long time, and give him some good nuggets and some good wisdom. And now we have one here on the podcast who's actually just recently done this.
Yeah, I don't have any nuggets because I'd have no idea what I'm doing.
So talk to us about, kind of get that, drill down into that process a little bit. Okay, so you're working, you're like, I think I could do that. This is the other things going on in life, and I think this would be a benefit of it.
Yeah,
so now what do you do? What does that process look like for you? What happened? You start talking to your boss.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of saw it coming. When you're in the trades and you go for your masters and your contractors. So you get your journeymans and you can run projects, you can do all that kind of thing. So that's a natural stopping point for a lot of people because they have no interest. So when you start going like, hey, I'm studying for my master's exam, it's like, why are you doing that? Because you have to have a master's in the company, but you don't have to. So my last company was like 30 people in the field and there was one master just because you just need one for the whole company. Right. So it's like I said, it's that natural, like, oh, what are you doing that for? Was that a signal that I need to?
No, that was a signal for me.
Oh, okay.
I mean, not a signal for people. Okay, so a lot of time in a company, you just need one master. And so you have the one master and a bunch of journeymen and then a bunch of apprentices, et cetera, et cetera. And so they saw the writing on the wall of, hey, Jared's going to get his master.
And I was pretty open about it because I hadn't really made a decision. The master's exam is fairly difficult, so you have to do a lot of studying and such.
And your favorite thing to do is study.
Yes, especially when you have young children and you're trying to remember math equations and which code applies to what.
And there was a really good time for you, wasn't it?
It was great. I failed my first time by one question.
Ouch! Oh, it's painful.
So then then it became like a Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
What words did you say in your head?
Well, there was some adult words spoken.
some 18+ words.
Well, and it was like I don't want to take time explaining it. It was basically that I missed that there was a drop down window because the way that the test was all online, the scroll function was like one shade off of the rest of the screen. So I literally missed that it was a slide down that gave you more information. So then I spent like 10 questions based on this outline of some motors that were lined up. And I was sitting there going, I don't have all the information that I need to finish this equation. So then I had to guess because it's all timed. And there's nobody there to be like, oh, you just scroll down, you dingleberry. But so I missed it by one question.
Right?
And then I went back and I got like a.
So how did you find out that was the case?
I got done and I regurgitated the exact question from the test onto a piece of paper and I handed it to my boss and I said, tell me how I'm supposed to get this
out.
And she went, you can't. And I was like,
yes, I know.
So I knew going back into that because I emailed the state and I was like, you need to review this because I don't think there's all the information. And they just came back with, well, you have all the information, so we'll suck it.
So when you went in again,
so when I went in, I got to that. It was the exact same, like, because there's several different questions and things, but I got the exact same setup, and I knew like motor A, motor B, motor C, and I'm like, I stare at this until I figure out where the rest of this information is.
Found this little shadow.
And it was like one of those, like, is that an arrow? And you click it, and it goes down a screen.
Son of a. You didn't stop there though, did you? Did you say it out loud in the testing room?
No, because that would be bad.
That would be funny.
There's like someone sitting over your shoulder. What was that?
That would be hilarious. He's sitting in there.
Mother.
And you got like 6 guys taking tests in perfectly silent room and you're a guy goes, son of a. Anyway. So you
I
took your
passed
test,
that.
you passed your test.
The contractor's exam is next, which is more based on the laws, and you can have some more material in there that's the actual laws, so it's just a matter of
knowing where
reading
to find
through
it
twice and then walking into the test and knowing where to find it, which is a lot of the electrical, but it's just, 20 pages versus 800 pages.
Exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, after the electrical contractor's exam that's like the real writing on the wall. Like,
okay.
So it wasn't a surprise to them, and they were really supportive.
But you had a good relationship with them,
and
that kind of thing. And
when I left, they were like, "Well, let us know when you come back."
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to? How did she put it? She said,
"Let us know if you want to come back."
Yeah. She said the lights on and the keys under the mat, I think is what she said. So
that's so nice.
Yeah, it was one of those. But
that's cool. That's awesome. Have they sent you any work?
No, but we don't really.
You don't do the same things.
Yes, but they're strictly in that high end for the most part, which is a stricter clientele. Like a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is not competing with them.
Right.
And I'm not in the city of Grand Rapids, which
all
the normal stuff they do is mostly around Grand Rapids, like their local calls. So I think I've been back to Grand Rapids twice, and neither time was for work, which is wonderful.
So now you're doing your own thing. Where what were your biggest fears in starting off on your own? Obviously having enough work, right?
Yeah, just work and money. That's pretty much it. It's never been can I do that work? I can't do that work. We'll see this summer if I die from too much work, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, because you started in
August, which is like the tail end. Like all the jobs, most of the jobs are started at that point that are going toward winter.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I've got some.
Do you have
stuff?
And it's just you? You don't have a helper?
Nope.
pull your son in every once in a while if you get something bigger? Or...
I haven't yet, but he's on notice.
He's on
that
notice.
He is now 14, and the child labor laws do not apply.
That's right. Well, yeah. So, and there are lots of tax benefits too.
Oh,
I think you don't have to pay FICA on your kids under 18. Anyway, that's beside the point.
I don't know. I haven't figured all that out yet.
We'll have to find a Christian person who owns an accounting firm.
And I've got to do some research before, because I've been looking at it. I couldn't support somebody full time, but there are laws against, like, you have to have apprentices. So having them do I can 1099 somebody, but they can't do any electrical work technically. So there's like some gray, like some weird stuff going on there, because the state of Michigan's trying to get rid of like lifetime apprentices. They want you to keep advancing. So I still got to figure all that out.
I see.
But I might need some help this summer on and off.
Got you.
We'll see.
Well, now the calls are going to start flooding in.
I've got some people lined up with some
other options.
We'll see.
There are many options. So you get going, and how if you don't mind talking about, and she doesn't mind you talking about, how did your wife respond during this whole situation? Where was she at with you going out on your own?
She's been pretty good with it. I mean, I make my own schedule a little more, and I'm not an hour and a half away every day.
So if something goes down, you can, hey, yep, I'm on it.
I mean, we've seen each other a lot more in the last 6 months than we have for a long time, which is nice. Just because, I mean, before I'd be up at 4:15, 4:30, be leaving the house 5:30, 6 o'clock, getting home at 4:35.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get up about the same time, but I'm just downstairs doing paperwork, so I can walk up and help the kids with getting ready for school.
Right.
So seeing the kids before school is something I never did before. And that was part of the reason. It's just I only raised kids once.
Right.
So anything I can do to be around a little bit more.
Absolutely. The leading up to the process, did she have the same fears as you, or different, or was she a little more, was she like, hey, we should do this more? Who was kind of more excited about you going on your own?
I don't know. She was a lot cooler about it. Like, I was the one having anxiety wrecks.
Got you. Okay. I got you.
Which was a shift in the paradigm of how things usually go. So,
got you.
Traded turns, like who's the one that usually freaks out is her.
Well, it's a heavy responsibility.
Oh, it's just the unknown.
You're responsible for all of it. Like, you're responsible to make sure the phone rings. You're responsible to answer the phone. You're responsible to do the work. Something goes wrong, you're responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas previously, you were doing the same thing, but the responsibility and risk were significantly less.
And I could just shut it off after the 8 hours.
Yep.
There were certain people that I would answer the phone for after hours, but there's other people like, I'm not getting paid for this. I'm not talking to you.
Right. Exactly.
Send me 2 texts if the house is burning down. Other than that, I don't care.
Right.
I will see you tomorrow.
And even if the house is burning down, the fire department's going to be in there anyway, so you don't need to see me till tomorrow.
It was
anyway.
A big enough company that they never really put pressure, but there was enough people that if you got behind, they could just throw more people at it. When you're by yourself, it's like, well, if you get behind, you just need to work more.
Have you gotten to that point yet? Like,
there was like a month. There was a month where it was like that, where it was like, oh, it looks like Saturdays are now on the table.
How far out are you booking right now?
I've been a couple days.
Okay.
I got some stuff starting, so now I'm back up to like 2.5 weeks.
Okay. So that's.
I've found that my natural comfort zone is between 2 and 3 weeks. If I have less than 1 week scheduled out, I have anxiety. If I have more than 3.5 weeks scheduled out, I have anxiety because it's like I'm not there yet.
Right.
Or there isn't enough on the schedule. So that sweet spot's like between 2 and 3 weeks.
I think one of the nice things for you in terms of getting going on your own was that you had seen much of the business under somebody else's risk. And you knew what you were capable. It's not like you're stepping into a business with 6 guys and don't know what they're capable of doing.
Right.
You know how long it's going to take to do that job.
Give or take.
Right. Give or take. Right.
It's different when the phone's ringing for other stuff. That is one thing I have found.
Had to make adjustments for.
Well, just somebody's calling about a completely new job whilst I'm trying to finish this one. And you're not going to be like, I'll call you back later.
Right. Because they'll just call somebody else.
Yeah.
So there's that piece of it. What pieces do you think you still like really, what areas do you feel like you still really need to improve in terms of running a successful business? Like, where are you like, man, I keep missing this or falling behind on this, or what parts are you like, I got to grow here?
I need to charge more money.
You need to charge more money. You need to be able, right. No, absolutely. And that's a huge thing with a lot of people in business, especially in our industry, because we look at every day we are spending thousands of people's dollars on a project.
And I feel bad.
And we go home.
That
and
Midwest nice kicks in. Like, oh, sorry, it's going to cost you an extra $10 on the... Oh, sorry about that. Like, my service call is $120, which is actually cheaper than a lot of... $120 for the first hour, which I know is cheaper than a lot of the other actual licensed and insured.
Right.
Which I am. And it's on purpose because I want you to call me instead of them.
Right, exactly.
And I'm just getting started. And I can do that.
Right.
But I'll do that like if it's a 15-minute service call. In my mind, I'll be like, okay. But it's been a mental thing of mine. Like, no, it's $120 for me to show up. Like, it's just the way it is.
That's it.
And I don't have to say I'm sorry. I always want to say, like, Liz, I'm sorry. Sorry.
So I have to charge you. Yeah. Does Walmart apologize for selling milk? No, they don't.
It's $120 for me to show up. I had a lady call me yesterday, and this was one of the funniest calls I've gotten. She calls me and goes, I need a light bulb. Oh, okay. I can get you a light bulb. She's like, it's this part number. Oh, okay. How much does that cost? I'm like, well, I'm going to have to find it. Like, it was an odd shaped bulb. And I'm like, I have to find it. And she's like, well, how much is that going to cost? I'm like, well, the price of the bulb and an hour worth of labor, you're looking at, and she was here in Fremont, so it was like 5 minutes. So I could just say, $70. What? Really? I'm like, well, I'm not a supplier. She thought I was like box store or something.
Got you.
She's like, well, I can install the bulb. And I'm like, well, then
go buy the bulb. How did you find me? Well, I searched online. Yeah. Okay, search online for the bulb.
Yeah, look for the bulb and order that.
There's this company called Amazon, and they bring it to you in 2 days.
Yeah. And I always pitch 1000bulbs.com because it has pictures. Like, you don't even have to go off the words. You can just
look at the picture,
prompt off the pictures and find the bulb you're looking for. Order.
Right? No, So I think again, in our industry, a lot of people have a problem with that. Because you're like, well, I wouldn't pay $100 for an electrician. Of course you wouldn't, because you're an electrician.
I can do it. Yeah.
I wouldn't pay a guy, $300 a square to put siding up. Well, of course not, because that's what I do.
Yep. But that and just bidding like a larger project, like I've got it down to where, as far as I can tell, I'm pretty fair compared to other companies.
When you wired the shop, you were probably
I was close. Like I'm in the ballpark of everybody else, which is where I want to be. But just having that, like, you look at the total for a whole house and you're like, mother pearl. Like, it's a 1,200 square foot house. It shouldn't cost $8,500 to put 2 lights and a service.
Right.
That's an over exaggeration, but
yeah, right.
Just putting outlets to code,
right,
and basic lights,
but. And you think about, like, my big thing when I first started out, and Justin was really supporting me. Speaking of, we don't have Justin today. Sorry.
He doesn't
busy.
like me.
He's busy. But when I started out, I bid a job, and I bid it to make, $25 an hour, which was $8 an hour more than I was making. And he's like, no. That's not what it costs to do the job. Insurance and experience. And it's the old story of the guy who showed up to some factory to fix a problem with the boiler or whatever, and he gets in there and he looks things over for about 5 to 10 minutes, and he pulls out a ball peen hammer and taps on the boiler in one spot, and it fixed. And so he handed him a $2,000 repair bill. $2,000 to tap on this thing? No. It was $2 to tap on this thing. $1,998 to know where to tap.
Yep. And that's the long and short of it.
Right. And so, to say for, the work you actually come in and actually physically do is, maybe that work's worth $20 an hour. But everything else that goes on.
And so I think my number is pretty fair. Like, my hourly, it's like all my math seems fair.
It does. But it's very fair, but it's hard to receive that. Oh. It's hard. I'm sorry. It's hard to put that out.
Did that take me 4 hours, or was it more like 3 hours and 15 minutes?
Right.
Like, I just need to be okay. Like, no, it was 4 hours.
Right.
You're going to have to give me that extra.
Or that little, it's 15 minutes, but.
Yeah, it took me 25 minutes to get here. I had to stop doing something else I was doing.
Yeah. How much? Yeah. One guy once said to me, Aaron, you have to know how much it costs to start your truck every day. He said, and if you can't make that, then don't start your truck. And the concept was, his particular thing at that time while we were talking was, when you price your daily, what you need to bring in a day, you take all your expenses, whatever, spread it out over, the number of days you're going to work in a month. And if you can't make that, then stay home. And it makes a lot of sense. And it made a lot of sense to me at that time, because if you, and then the other one is it takes a half a day to change a light bulb. And just walking through the process of that, as guys got to get to the shop and they got to have their cup of coffee.
My pace is a little slower. Like some guys will try and, if you're strictly doing service calls, some people try to cram in 3 or 4 in a day. And I'm like, I'll do 2. And if I'm done by lunch, I'll call somebody about a third one. Like I'm not trying to crush myself.
Right. And, you know where your numbers are at home and you know where your numbers are in your business.
Yeah.
And so it just makes it that much easier. What do you do for, like, I'm always seeking out, and sometimes maybe to my detriment, doing a little too much, but I'm always seeking out like knowledge from other people. Who do you like, do you find yourself chasing down knowledge as far as, getting moving in your business and being productive and that kind of thing?
I still talk to my old boss. Like most recently it was like, hey, do you know an engineer that can stamp a print?
Oh, okay.
Like stuff like that. I've worked with Nibor here out of Fremont a couple times, Electric, and they've been really good to me. They've sent me some stuff. And so there's been a couple things I'll text them about, like, how does that work up here?
Right. Okay.
Because I'm from here, but I've never worked here.
Things like finance, strategy, that kind of stuff. Do you reach out to
that
folks,
kind of stuff? Not really.
Not really. Just kind of like,
I listen to a lot of podcasts, and podcasts you can learn anything on podcasts.
So do you listen to a lot of like business type podcasts?
No.
Or no? To
all the good ones. I mean,
yes,
you
that's
pick
so
up
helpful.
When
that's
you have.
helpful.
I enjoy podcasts, and I think that if you listen to people who know what they're talking about long enough, you'll just kind of glean things,
concepts, big picture concepts. Hey, that guy, when he talks, he blah,
they
blah,
said
blah.
that one thing that one time, like for example, that thing we talked about for that the hardest thing you've ever done is hard. Like that's just something I've listened to a lot of hours of that man talking, and I know where he's full of crap, and I know.
Where he's on point.
Where he's on point. And that's one of those things, like he's talked to a lot of different people, and listening to all those conversations, you pick up. So as far as business goes, there's several different things you listen to it.
But you're not actively like, hey, I could really get better at sales, so I'm going to, seek out some sales guys. Or, hey, looking at investing in a piece of equipment, who should I talk to? You don't have a lot of...
No. I mean, but I'm a small residential guy.
Sure.
So, I mean,
right.
It's one of those
pretty straightforward.
The advice I got was don't try to buy everything, just buy it as you need it. And that's been one of those as far as equipment goes. Like I just got a newer van. But it's just kind of one of those, you take that general concept. I mean, as you get bigger, I think I might need that more. But right now,
do you have a desire or plan to grow? Or do you like keeping it H Electric and it's Jared?
I like teaching people, but I like teaching one at a time.
So you would like to grow slowly, organically?
Very slowly. I mean, there's 2 different methods of growth there. There's the fast and the slow, and I would much prefer the slow.
Doesn't surprise me.
But I also have a hard time saying no. So we'll see how that battle
Well, see where God
out.
brings the work in as far as like, okay, for us, this year we just got, hit up for 2 largest, 3, the both jobs are 3 times our largest project ever.
Right.
And so it's like, yeah, well, the opportunity's there, the numbers are right, things are lining up. Well, I guess it's time to grow,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we'll see. And there's something coming this, like I put a price out on something that's like way beyond. I'm like, I don't know. Like I used to be frustrated with at my previous job. One of the things that frustrated me, just say no. Like, this is a bad job. We don't need to do it. Whatever. Say no.
Right.
She'd like kindly told me, like, listen, it's harder to say no than you think.
And then you found out.
Now that I'm the one in charge, I'm like,
it's harder to say no than you think.
It's really hard to say no. Like, yeah. I've turned down a couple that I'm like, I'm sorry, no. Like, that's not.
What are you turning them down for? Size or
one
people?
Of them was it was like what they were doing was not going to solve their problem, and it was like a 1960s trailer, and they were getting a grant to replace every single wire in the trailer. And I said, that's not your answer. That's not what you want to do. And they were just convinced that that's what they wanted to do.
Like, I'm sorry.
She's like, I got a price for, and she named a price from another company. I'm like, well, good
go
luck.
for it.
Yeah. Like,
it's
call
like
me back when it's.
It's like when somebody asks me to, put shingles over an existing roof on a house where the total job cost is going to be higher than the cost of that house.
Right.
And it's like,
yeah. And there's been a couple other times I'm like, there's a cheaper way to do this. And if you want to spend the money, I'll for sure do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
I've turned it down for that. And there was one that was just volume. It was like, I need this done now.
And it's like, this big, and I don't have the manpower.
I don't have that. Like, I'm busy right now, and that's I can get to that in a month and a half.
Right. And if that doesn't work for you, then
I understand.
I understand. Here's my card. Call me on the next one.
Yep. So that's been turning down work, but it's really painful.
It is. And again, one of those huge lessons. I don't think you're bringing out things that every business owner in the world is not like, yeah, I remember that. And
that sucks.
And every bit and half of them are going, yeah, I really need to get better at that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're what's our time looking like for us? 54. Okay.
Feels like it's been 2 hours. Yes. They did.
We're able to come in. Damn.
I did. I felt good.
Do you like rescuing people, Jared?
His kids were staring at me out the window going, it's so cold.
Here's Jared with his. And so I ended up going over there for something. And here I see, how did you put it with Seth with your kid going in the creek? Something, teapot over
what? Over tea kettle. I think the actual saying
bottom over tea kettle.
Yeah, the actual saying is something with a bleep and then over tea kettle.
Yeah. So Jared's in a hole, bottom over tea kettle, just like I see these feet sticking out. Get it with like, how's it going?
4 foot down, trying to patch a line because there's no way we're redigging it. And it's
my goodness. Oh, that
was the coldest day in 2 weeks. Like, why is it always the coldest day in 2 weeks?
Of course. It's like doing hay on the hottest day of the year. It's like you just have to.
It's always you wait until the hottest day of the year.
Yes.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. It's only 75 today. We're waiting until tomorrow.
It's only 92. We could probably make 93 by next week.
I guess the humidity's high enough. We could go at 90.
We could do it.
Yep.
Yeah. So what is the weirdest electrical thing or the that you have ever seen on a job or on a repair or on a, what's the situation where you walk in and go, like, I don't even see how this house is still standing because of the poor, what crazy things have you seen?
I mean, there's a lot. Like I started on my Facebook page and I'm not sure if I should keep doing it because there's a bunch of Facebook groups, electrical Facebook groups that they send in some of the weirdest,
stupidest things.
And I was like, I should do that on mine because they're always found in the wild.
Oh,
and then you put in there. So I started doing that on my Facebook page a little bit. And I'm like, man, these are people's houses that I worked on. Maybe I shouldn't. But you walk in and it's just like, ma'am, your panel's in your shower. And that's not good.
Their panel was in their shower.
Yeah. That one I didn't personally walk in on. It was somebody I was working with. And they were using the bottom of the panel to hold the soap. I'm not joking. This is not
that is not a real story.
It is a real story.
That is not the electrical panel.
Yeah.
They were storing this. They were putting the
soap on the bottom. Yeah. The cover was off.
Wash off your body.
Yep.
Set the soap down in the bottom of the electrical
panel. And that's where
panel.
people are like, oh, my service. Forrest is one of them. This is so bad. I'm like, I mean, it's not good, but
you're okay.
You're okay. Everything's still working. You're fine.
What is that? The worst thing you've ever seen?
It's the worst thing Forrest looks at his panel and he goes,
that's the worst thing I've ever seen. And Jared's like,
it could stand to be replaced. Yes. you're all right.
Seth's
you're gonna
upside.
be okay.
My kid's upside down in the water.
Yep.
But
It's
there
gonna
are
be
worse
okay.
things.
There
It's
are
going to
worse
be
things,
okay.
There's some pretty sketchy things, like you go into attics, and it's like I've seen where you go up into an attic and there's a black ball around some loose wires that's like somebody had twisted them together and hadn't taped them off or anything. So, I mean, it was heating up enough to change the color of the insulation, but never caught fire. And you're just like, I think I'm not going to work on that.
Or I am going to work on that and charge somebody a lot of money.
And there was one a couple weeks ago, and I ended up sending some pictures to the homeowner. Like, this is what I'm looking at. And it was some older knob and tube, and a lot of older light fixtures would take those incandescent light bulbs, and over time it would just heat up. And you pulled the fixture down, and it was a tongue and groove wood ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
You pulled the fixture down, and inside of the fixture, so there was a distinct line, and all of the wood was black. And you pull on the wire a little bit, and you just watch all of the insulation around all the wires just falling off. And it's like all the wires are like this green color from heating up and cooling down too many times. And like you move it a little bit and it just starts breaking.
Oh dear.
And you're like, I know you just hired me to change out your light fixture. However,
we have a problem.
If I walk away from this the way it is right now,
if you touch it, you own it. Yeah, if you touch it, it's just like a roof. You know, I'll replace.
Where's your attic access? That's my next question.
Right. I can't, because sure enough, and number one, you don't want somebody's house to burn down.
Right.
But number two, if you replace that light fixture and the house burns down, guess what?
I mean, it's not on me.
But is it?
No.
I bet that a lawyer could make something happen, because...
Then I just say, where did it fail? Because if it's anywhere within this 10 feet, was it the stuff I touched, or was it 2 feet down the line? There's no way you can't pin that on me. Now, granted, if you install a whole electrical panel and the next day it burns down and you can tell the fire started at the electrical panel, okay,
it's like,
maybe.
All right, fine.
Yeah.
You know, unless it's,
But every house fire is electrical. You should know that. If they can't find a reason, it was electrical.
That's the deal, huh?
I think so.
No kidding. Well, just like back during COVID, if we can't find a reason for death, it's COVID. Anyway, sorry. Shots fired.
You don't have to say that every time you have like a hot take. You can just...
It makes me feel special to say
okay. All right.
You just leave me alone.
I got to laugh out of Forrest. That's mission accomplished.
Oh, my goodness. So, all right, you're in the middle of the process. In the middle, kind of coming out of the starting in business for yourself process. Because you've been, 6 months, 8 months?
Sure. Since August, whatever.
August.
Yeah, like 6 months.
September, October, November, December, January.
I'd have to take my shoes off to get that high.
That's 7.
Yeah, there you go, 7 months.
Dude, you got a deformed hand.
Yeah. I don't know.
7, like most people have, like 5 fingers on one hand.
Yeah, but my hand's cold, so I got my other hand in my pocket. My feet are warm, so I can take my shoe off.
I don't have heat in the office yet. I ran a propane torpedo heater for 20 minutes before he got here, so I'm making everybody freeze. Good. But anyway, so we typically wrap up with a couple of nuggets for people who are in the place where you have been over the past year, let's say, from thinking about it to doing it to getting started. Give them a couple of nuggets in terms of what. Well, actually, I'm not ready for that yet. Hard stop. This is a Christian business podcast.
Uh-huh.
Where do you see, and I know this is, I am going to appreciate your response, because I think that you offer an interesting perspective in terms of where faith and life intersect and what that looks like and how we label that and talk about it. So
that was very polite. Continue. I got you.
So talk to me about where obviously God shows up in the process, but do you see, again, I'm going to go back to spiritual, do you see just kind of a steady, always, hey, when I pray about it? And do you see like spiritual, like any massive spiritual connotation within the past year, business-wise, for you?
I think that the difference in how what's a good way to put that? Yes and no, which is always my answer for every question. But I think
Remember
that
how I said I would appreciate your
the situation means that you relate to God a little differently just because your questions are different and your understanding is a little different. I don't want a Christian business. I want a business that has Christian people that treat people in a Christian way. I don't want a Christian business.
You don't want to, as you've said before, or you said something about a particular situation. You said some people just have it as a part of who they are, and some people use it to sell barbecue.
Right. And
you don't want to use it to sell barbecue.
And that's not like a diss on anybody who puts it out there. It's just not my way of doing things.
It's not how you roll.
I want people to go, they didn't rip me off, or they treated me well, or they like that. When they use H Electric, that's where I want them to be. Like, they treated me well. They treated me with kindness. He was fair. He was all the things.
That guy's probably a Christian kind of thing.
Exactly. Like,
Gotcha.
I don't want to lead with that. I want you to discover it through having a relationship.
Do you think you shy away from, like, if somebody, you come in and somebody's like, hey, I'm struggling in this area or whatever, because you're in somebody's house working on their stuff and you talk,
If they're obviously Christians who are talking about Christian things, like, yeah, that's me, that's fine.
But if they're not and they're, they're sharing, hey, I'm just struggling with this, like, are you like, hey, I'll be praying for you.
People
that kind of
don't
stuff,
usually ask for advice from their electricians. I know this is hard to believe.
You just have conversation, but you're, and I look at it like you're not the.
I don't mind talking to people if they want to start a conversation.
Right, but you're not going to go looking for it.
I'm not gonna bud my nose and like, I noticed that you were arguing with your husband on the phone. May I suggest?
No, I think a lot of the things that I run into kind of on a personal, like, one person basis, and our different businesses are in kind of different spots. But, when I was doing kind of one-on-one stuff, it was, and I'm more of a talker though, so I'm going to find these things out.
Right.
A parent says, yeah, I just found out mom was in the hospital. And so I'm like, okay, we'll be praying for mom or whatever, something like that. So you're not hiding it.
No, like, if I can tell someone,
you're not leading with it, and you're not talkative.
You can tell how people decorate too. I mean,
right.
If they've got, John 3:16 on their wall, and like you said, that situation where you can hear they're going through a rough time, like, hey man, I'm praying for you.
Right.
But I'm not
going to hide it. You're not.
If they have, Satanist posters on the wall and I can tell they're going through a hard time, I'm not bad. Listen, I'll talk to Jesus for you.
Right.
I think you should talk to him too. That's not going to be my approach.
So your approach would be, I'm going to treat this person well with kindness, dignity, and respect, and I'm going to walk away.
And that's fine.
Maybe they'll hear from somebody that I love Jesus.
What? See, that was loaded. That was really loaded right there.
How was that loaded?
You're implying that I should have okay, I won't say that. You're not implying. I heard when you said that, I heard that there is an onus on us to make sure that they hear Jesus in the right time frame. Like, we have a responsibility. So when you said that, you said, repeat it.
Maybe sometime they'll find out.
Yeah,
oh, hey, that guy.
Because they're not finding it out from you.
I don't think I said that. As a matter of fact, we recorded this, so I can go back.
I'm saying that's what I heard is what I'm saying.
I'm messing with you.
So, yeah.
But, and that's not where my heart was.
No, and I know that. That's
because
why
I've known you long enough.
I said something.
And
because if I thought that you actually meant that, I wouldn't have said anything.
Right.
Just
so we've known each other long enough, right? And I think it's something for all of us to consider. I think that, I'm going to be more, but again, part of that's gifting, part of that's
just
personality, right?
Part of
like, I'm going to find that stuff out more aptly than you are.
And on the business side, you're in a position that you talk to clients a lot more than I do. Like, I'll talk to them a little bit, and there's a greater relation between what I say and what I do than in your situation, because I'm physically the one talking to you on the phone. I'm physically the one fixing your light switch. I'm physically the one. So it's a different relationship than making sure that things get done, which is where
it gets done and being a point of contact.
Right.
And so my job is contact.
Yeah. And
connection.
And that's just different.
Absolutely. And, service calls and stuff, there's not a whole lot of competition for you. So it's not like you have to, it's not like you have to sell so much. It's like, I got time tomorrow.
I use a lead service that I can turn on and off, that if I get slow, I'll use that. But
you're still not having to sell. Be like, yeah, I can probably get there tomorrow, and it's going to cost this much.
Right.
Your prices are good. You're in the area, whatever.
Well, and when you tell somebody the price, there's people that think that my price is very unfair, but they think all prices are unfair,
right,
from anyone.
Oh, absolutely.
So they're like, that costs that much? Yes.
Yes, it does.
And if you want to go if you can find someone cheaper,
go right ahead. So there's not a whole lot of selling you do. I'm going to come and I'm going to fix your problem. It's like,
right.
What, there's not.
And there's been a couple people I could tell were fishing for it. Like, well, I got another price that was $20 cheaper. I'm like, okay, have fun.
Right. Most of the
time.
You. Most of the time.
Yeah. Well, it's fine.
As long as, the overcoming the difficulty of not wanting to say no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to do the work, but I'm not going to sit here and
quibble with you for that situation.
Right.
You get in there and the widow goes and pulls out of her dresser drawer $119 and 37 cents.
Little old ladies are the worst.
Aren't they
They're
awful,
the worst.
Because they're not trying to get like.
No, well, the one, I went to this lady's house and she had a bad outlet in her kitchen, and she's talking to me the whole time, and oh yeah, for 92 I'm doing pretty well, as she kind of hobbles along. And she was really sweet, and like I go back to her panel and she's like, sorry for all the stuff in there. There was like one thing in the room, like it's okay, like I'll get in there and clean that later. I'm like, ma'am, it's perfectly fine, everything's fine.
I can work.
I was
around
there
the
for
teddy
20
bear on the
minutes.
floor.
I was there for 20 minutes. I swapped out her outlet. It was one of those, like, pretty obviously, this line of outlets is bad. That's the first one. You pull it out and it's black.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I think I found the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever use stab-ins on the back of the device. That's the lesson here. But, I swap it out and she goes, well, how much is that check? Write it for $50. And she's like, okay, I'm going to start right now. It takes me a while. She says, it's just, and I was like, it's fine. It was a Friday afternoon, and whatever. And she goes, well, how much do you usually charge? I'm like, I usually charge 120, but you already got that check made out, so we're just going to go with that $50.
Well, no, I don't want to short
and she kind of looked at me, and I'm like, ma'am, it's fine. It's Friday afternoon. It took me 20 minutes. And they're the worst.
They are, because they will. They say, well, I don't want to short you. So
you're not shorting me. I got joy just from being in your presence. You weren't mad.
Right.
And I think old people that aren't mad and bitter at the world are like a rarity that deserves.
Oh, you are going to be so mad.
recognition.
I can't wait till you're 75 years old.
Dude, I'm going to be so.
I can't wait. I'm going to laugh at you so hard.
I told my wife, what's that? I told my wife she gets me till I'm 60, and then all bets are off.
Get off my grass, dude! I'm
not going to tell you anything. You're just going to walk back to your car. There's going to be some holes in your tires. And I'm going to be sitting on the porch drinking coffee.
It's like Jeff Allen talks about the guy hunched over.
I'll leave the toilet seat up if I want to leave the toilet seat up.
I ain't talking to you. So, okay, now we have the idea of the understanding of the spiritual connotation of the business of my spiritual walk and my ministry is something that is my spiritual walk and my ministry, and my business, it puts food on the table, and I am available and loving people well. And
there are Christians in the room. Well, that's a hot take. I'll just leave that one there. But I don't need it to be a Christian thing. I need it to be a thing where Christians are.
And you kind of throw up in your mouth a little bit, even like at the word Christian.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. That Christianese, and I'm sure you have heard it over the course of the podcast, and I understand that, and I get that. And
well, it's not.
I think it stretches people like me.
Yeah.
I think that's why I've appreciated our relationship. Like Jared and I are like two of the most unlikely friends.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder if we would even say that, but I
don't even think he loves Jesus.
But
oh, yeah, good luck in hell there, pal.
the amount I have grown and my faith has been stretched and strengthened by conversations with Jared.
But that's
has just
through
been
relationship,
incredible.
though.
Exactly.
It's the weight of shared experiences that lends credence to the person's argument.
Yes.
So there are other people who I know that talk like you do, but don't necessarily act like you do, and I have a very hard time being in their presence.
Right.
But I mean, we've had years of experience of going like, this person has my good in mind. And I can take that and I can go, okay, I disagree with this, or that makes me, but like, you have my good in mind. Like I have no doubt about that.
Right.
Whereas other people, like,
I don't know what you
they
have in
my
mind.
good in mind.
Right.
Yeah.
I think they just want to be right. And I think it's my hope that some of the places I am and some of the conversations we've had have stretched your faith too, and your stretched your paradigms and grown you in
and for me,
areas.
it's one of those I like to write off whole groups. So like I can't.
Sorry, I got something in my throat.
I think it's a natural thing. We like to form we as human beings like to form our opinion about, well, this person did that, therefore I don't have to take anything they say seriously. I mean, look at politics. Like, we have our litmus test questions, and they believe this on this. Now I don't have to listen to anything they say about anything. And just having people in your life that disagree with you, who actually have your good in mind, is something that's very valuable.
It's precious. And that's why I loved that podcast. And I'd get home and my wife would say, like, you disagree with both of them on everything. And I'm like, I know. That's why they're such good friends.
Well, we don't disagree about everything. We disagree about 15%. It's just the areas that we focus on.
And we do. And we enjoy it. Yeah. But again, that is, I think, when a lot of people talked about that podcast, Undignified Christianity, we did have a lot of disagreements, and I think people appreciated. We actually had people tell us, I love how you guys love each other and can have the most vehement disagreements. Is vehement the right word? I don't think.
I think it'll get you there, but I'm not sure if it's the right one.
The most heated discussions, but the whole time people could hear in our voices and in our words how much we loved each other.
Right.
Like, in the middle of that heated, like, everybody knew that Jared and I, like, for a second it would sound like we were going to come over the table across each other and I was going to die. But then they just knew, like, within seconds there was just an understanding that, yes, they're there, but these guys, that's just not going to happen.
Right.
Because, and I think part of the reason, and one of the things that you have, what's the word, articulated well for me early on in our podcasting, was that a lot of times people have discussion and it's about their identity. If you disagree with me, you don't like me. If you disagree with me, then you have a problem with who I am as a person. No, that's not true. I disagree with you in this area, Jared, and I think you're dead wrong. But that doesn't have anything to do with how I feel about you. That has nothing to do with our relationship. There's that. Now, when those things become fundamental to who we are, I am not my opinion of evangelism. I am an evangelist, but I'm not my opinion of evangelism. And so when you disagree with my opinion of evangelism, there's nothing personal there for me to take. Look, it's just an opinion. There's nothing there. And I think that's why our relationship has stayed as strong as it has, is because we don't view our disagreements as part of who we are. Because I love who Jared is. He's a man who loves Jesus, who works hard, takes care of his family, loves people, acts honorably, and is willing to get up and go through life every single day, regardless of where he's been. And he doesn't let that completely control who he is. And that's why I love Jared. So anything else beyond that doesn't affect how I feel about him.
I'll laugh at you when you realize you're wrong, but I'm not going to hate you on the way there.
Right. So, sorry, got on my soapbox there for a minute.
No,
but
not Aaron.
Never. No, the guy who loves hearing his voice so much that he gets on a podcast once a week and puts headphones on so he can hear himself talk.
I miss it sometimes. Yeah.
Maybe we'll have to get the three of us on a Christian business podcast once, just for old time's sake.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. And I don't.
Yeah.
There was I don't know. I don't know if I want to have that conversation on a podcast, but
We'll have that after the show, and
Yeah.
then you can just feel like you missed out on something.
Yeah, that's what keeps people coming back, right?
But you could
This is where you introduce the paywall.
the paywall. Yeah. So if you want to
Forrest
hear
is like,
that,
yeah, we could do a paywall. Yeah, we got $2.99.
So back to the nuggets for the people who are entering
have
into the
any
space.
nuggets.
Lessons you've learned in the past.
See, this is where I want to start. There were several handbooks in the Army that you had to memorize, and if anyone knows this, they're going to be like, he just butchered that, which is probably true. But it was
16 years ago. Give the guy a break.
One of the original Rangers had this outline of things that and it was always like, always keep your powder dry, never miss nothing. And there was like a list of like 13 or 14 like that. Like, this is how you don't die in the Army. Keep your powder dry, never miss nothing, I think was like number 2. And like, those are my nuggets. Like, keep your powder dry and never miss nothing.
And how does that apply?
I don't know, but I don't have any nuggets. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, make sure your wire nuts are on tight enough when you finish cinching them down. And if you see that the pipe is kinked a little bit, it's probably not going to hold the wire. You might want to cut that out and redo it. I mean, I've got those kinds of nuggets, but as far as like a Christian business.
Well, you don't even have to Christian business the nugget.
Dude, I just started. Like, I'm getting taxes back.
What did you learn?
I learned that I like wearing my sweatpants in the morning when I'm doing bids.
I think I can go with that.
Because I promised myself when I started my own business, I'm not going to turn into some kind of slacker that just, like, I'm not this isn't an excuse to slide. So I would still get up, put my jeans on, suspenders on, the whole deal.
Right.
And then I would make coffee, and then I would go down and do bids.
Right.
Or work on emails, whatever. And then, like, 2 weeks ago, I'm like, I could just put my sweatpants back on until I'm ready to go, and then I'd be more comfortable. And then I had this whole conversation with myself about, like, is that you being weak?
Listen here, self.
Or is that...
Listen here, self.
Let me examine. Am I BSing myself? Is this just an excuse to wake up a half an hour?
There's a nugget coming right here. It's coming.
Never lie to yourself. Never lie to yourself about your business either.
There it is.
Be willing to be like, this is not going well.
Got you.
You can't fix what you can't admit.
Oh,
is that a good nugget?
My goodness! Never lie about your business to yourself.
Well, that's a truism. Like,
really,
what's the worst thing you can do in life?
Lie to yourself.
Lie to yourself, because there's nobody to tell you.
Yeah,
that is the worst thing you can do in life. That is paramount.
I'll let it
Give
slide.
me a situation.
I'll let it slide.
Because you want to go back to Jesus, right? With that?
No.
Oh, where you want to go with it? Why are you going?
Well, I mean, you can do things that, I don't want to go there.
You're lying to yourself. If you're leaving yourself in those situations, there is some sort of false hope. There's some false ability of yours to fix the situation.
I'll have to chew on it.
The worst thing you can do in life is lie to yourself.
That'll be on the paid version.
And that goes for Jesus too. Like, lying to yourself about where you're at with Jesus is not. I mean, there's a lot of people right now.
Oh, look at you. You brought a little Christianese into
I'm going to do it for you.
Aw, that's so sweet.
If you're going, it's working fine, everything's fine, the business is fine, and at the same time, you're
falling apart like a turd in the rain,
and you're missing things, and you're not catching things, you're lying to yourself. Always be honest with yourself.
Always be honest with yourself. There you go. Well, this has been an episode of A Christian Business Podcast. You should subscribe or follow or whatever your particular platform has you do. There's a button somewhere that says something about you want to know when we post another episode. So do that.
Auto download.
You
don't even have to listen. Just auto download, push the start, and then you don't have to listen to the rest.
Right. There you go.
Oh, wait, this isn't my podcast. Listen to the rest.
You can listen. I mean, you can listen to the rest, but
yeah, Aaron's on top of it.
Well, I don't know if I'm on top of all that, but anyway. So we do thank you for listening. H Electric. We're going to put contact information for Jared and website and everything on the description. So if you're like, oh, hey, who's that electrician guy that Aaron had on the podcast? And you just search H Electric, and there it is.
I'm the only one in the state of Michigan, so there you go.
So you can Google it, or you can, when you hit auto download and when you go to like follow or subscribe, then you can find it right there too.
Yep, there it is.
You see how that? Anyway. All right. God bless you.